So welcome to session 1, attention and the now. Anyone that's kind of been around my stuff before knows I don't normally use slides, but for this program I am. So should be interesting. So today, first off, is what is mindfulness? This is what we're going to cover today. What is mindfulness? Second thing is the now. Third thing is attention. And then finally, this training, like what are we doing here? What are we doing in this program? So what is mindfulness? We'll start with what mindfulness is not. Firstly, it's not to relax. Which might sound funny, because that might sound like that's exactly what it is. And I think that's where people mix this up a bit. They think that meditation or mindfulness is to relax. That's something that you do, a tool that you use in order to relax, and that's not the case. It's a nice byproduct, but that's not the aim. It's also not a religion, although it does have its roots in Buddhism. Most stuff you'll find, if you're into this or if you're not into this, doesn't matter. If you was to read any books from thousands of years ago, like Buddhism, or there's things like Stoicism, the Bible, many religions, they all tend to be saying very similar things and pointing in the same direction. They just use different words. Words, unfortunately, are very easy to misconstrue and misunderstand and accidentally misperceive, if that's a word, perceive differently to what they're intended. But this isn't a religion. That's not what it is. Some people think sometimes that they're joining a cult when they come and work with me. Well, no, the people that come and work with me don't, but usually they're friends or something. I don't know, weird. Let's not get hung up on that. It isn't a religion. It's actually not a way to change thoughts. People make this mistake. They try and change their thoughts. They try and change their negative thinking, or they think that if they can just think positively, they can drown out the negative thinking. Sometimes that means their mind is even busier because they're trying to shout over the top of the negative thinking with positive thinking, or trying to reframe every negative thought into a positive thought. And that is a difficult task. I tried that for many years and it didn't work. It made things harder and made me more overwhelmed. That's not what this is. We're not looking to change thoughts. I'll tell you what we are looking to do soon, and it's much more powerful than that, much more simple than that, much more life-changing than that. If you're someone that's been trying to change your thoughts for any length of time, you'll know that it doesn't seem to work. It's also not difficult. It doesn't need to be difficult. Doesn't need to be hard. I don't know if you've tried this before. It might mean that maybe it's not been taught in a way that's landed for you before, or maybe, I don't know. There could be many reasons why this may not have worked. It hasn't. The person that's taught it just hasn't quite landed for you. You haven't quite been in the right place and time to really comprehend what was being said. Or maybe, if you don't actually watch this through to the end, well, then it is difficult because you haven't actually done it or stuck around long enough to see. That being said, it's also not easy. It should be. If you look at kids, then they can often be very, very mindful. And again, we'll go into what the definition of mindfulness is soon, but kids are often very, very mindful. This can be taught to kids. This can be taught to, as one example, kids with learning difficulties. They can grasp this. It should be easy, but especially in our world with so much going on, so much distraction, social media, all of that stuff, and the way we've been conditioned, because obviously our parents haven't learnt this, we're not taught it at schools, we're not taught it at college, university, or whatever level. So the reason it's not easy is just because it hasn't been well practiced or understood or taught. So it can become easy. Hopefully that will happen during the next however many hours together. It's also not a way to not be concerned with the future anymore. Could have been worded better, that sentence. What I mean by that is, whilst again this is a useful byproduct, in our everyday life, we do have to plan ahead. We do have deadlines sometimes. We do have to use calendars to work out. If I didn't look into the future, sometimes actually that could cause more stress because I wouldn't be prepared for taking Max to school later on. Football later on, or Rosie's got swimming, or who's going to pick who up and what time, and what am I eating because dinner time is going to be different, and I've got football, etc. So we do need to plan the future sometimes, explore the future. Obviously, if we live in the future all of the time, creating negative predictions of the future, then that's generally what we would call anxiety. Creating kind of future-based stories. So it's not a way of disregarding the future. That's what I'm trying to say here. Although what it is about creating more of a balance of being in the present more often and being less in the past or less in the future, or having a relationship with the past and future that's actually helpful as opposed to disempowering. And it's also not impossible to investigate scientifically. Some people care about science. I used to very much be about the science. Because for me, it was like if I couldn't prove it, then it didn't exist. It was like if there wasn't evidence to back it up, then... And actually, I've moved away from that a lot now. And I'd invite you to do the same, although, feel free. Look to how you feel about it. Sometimes I say just try it on. Don't believe me. Don't believe the science. Don't believe me or the science. Because the science can be kind of fake. Depends on who's funding it and what the agenda is. Although not always. But try it on. See how you feel. See what feels true to you. See if it fits your life. See the impact. Use yourself as a study, as an explorer, like we spoke about in the introduction. Explore this and see for yourself. But having said that, it has been extensively investigated scientifically. So, what is mindfulness? Now, a definition here is keeping one's complete attention to the experience on a moment-to-moment basis in an open and non-judgmental way. If we look at that in a bit more detail, it's keeping your attention. And again, all these things we're going to discuss, right? I know this is potentially boring. I don't know for you right now. Potentially boring, but we'll get there. We'll get cracking soon. This stuff's the boring but important stuff. We will expand on this, but if we expand on this now, it's if I can get my words out, it's keeping your complete attention on the experience of now, on this moment, in an open and non-judgmental way. What does that mean? Open and non-judgmental way. The reason that's important is because we are always judging the moment, whether we know it or whether or not. For me, I've always said it's like I've got Victor Meldrew. If you ever watched One Foot in the Grave, depending on how old you are, he was basically just a miserable old man, just constantly complaining. That's what the voice in my head does. That's what the chattering mind does. And it is for everyone, mostly. Especially if we don't notice it, that's when it obviously is worse. So how that would show up is me sitting here now, and let's say my attention, firstly, the first part, my attention may not be in this moment. I'm thinking, right, what time is it? Where have I got to be? What time's my next call? What about tomorrow? What about Friday? What day is it? Blah, blah. Then my attention isn't on the moment, it's on the future. Or I could be looking at, let's say I'm looking at, I don't know, stocks and shares. I use weird examples, or examples that are relevant to me, might be weird to you. And I might be looking at, if only I'd not sold my Bitcoin, then I'd have this much money. And I could be dwelling on the past. I could be thinking back to previous mistakes. I could be thinking back to previous experiences, what I wish I'd said or didn't say, or what I'd done, or where I could be, if only this or if only that. Then my attention is on the past. A lot of people do that too. So the first part is keeping my attention now, here, in this moment. But in a non-judgmental way. Because I don't know if you just heard that noise, right? I do my best to... I've got all sorts of stuff going on here to try and make the sound quality better. But the door moves in the wind. Normally, I would put something in front of that. I don't know why it's doing it. It means it must be windy outside because the window's shut. I can start judging this moment. Oh, bloody door's moving. That's ruining my sound. Now this is not going to be as good. Now, then we start judging the moment. We start judging things as good or bad. My coffee's cold. I wanted it hot. And then we can start to personalize it. For fuck's sake, now I can't enjoy it now because it's X, Y, and Z. And our mind goes off, starts judging things, good and bad, right and wrong. So that means even for some people, when they're in the moment, they are in the moment, but they're judging the moment. I wanted to sit here in silence, but now the kids have woken up early. Great. Or the TV's too loud and I wish it wasn't. Or next door's dog's barking. I wish that wasn't happening. Or it's colder than I want it to be. It's rainier than I wanted it to be. The sun's too hot. You get the point, right? So that's why that's important. So 5 core components. And I'm gonna tell you what these are, and then we're going to go into more detail. So the first component is attention. A lot of the nature of what we're doing is about cultivating attention. You may have heard the phrase where focus goes, energy flows, and results show. The second thing is open awareness. That awareness has transformational powers in and of itself. Once we become aware of something, that can often be enough to change it. That's often, I spoke about insight in the introduction. That awareness, when we become aware of our habits, aware of our behaviors, aware of our thought processes, aware of our thinking habits, aware of the things that are holding us back, as well as aware of the things that are helping us, our strengths, our weaknesses, that awareness is what enables us to change it, transform it, be more of it. Next thing is acceptance. Now, acceptance is so relevant in this exact moment because where my office is, there seems to be a lot of work going on. There's people on the roof now. I can hear people on the roof. That's putting me off. I find myself wanting to get angry. I'm finding myself thinking, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, I'm paying all this money for this office and I can't even record because there's people on the roof, there's people outside, there's people having lunch, there's scaffolding up. Now, that's how I live my life for a lot of the time. I wouldn't be aware, using point number 2, of that thought process. I wouldn't be aware enough to realize, to see it. I would become it. I'd be identified with it. My attention, using number 1 here, would be on the thoughts to the point where I'd start to feel the emotion, and sometimes that would then change how I did or didn't do. Maybe I'd stop recording this. Maybe I'd go and have an argument, etc. Right? So accidental, real-time lesson here, which we're going to cover this more in detail. So number 3 is acceptance. Acceptance of what is. This causes some people stress because they don't want to accept it because they hate it, or they hate themselves, or they hate their life, but we are going to go a lot more into detail as to how acceptance is actually such a transformational practice in that, and how that can change things. But just bear with me for now. No identification is number 4, and then choice. Again, I've kind of covered some of those in a second because I told you I'd be identifying with the thoughts as true, as real, and then choice. So the idea of mindfulness is through cultivating the attention, the open awareness of what's happening, the acceptance, not identifying with it, we then have choices. It used to feel like I'd lose my temper in traffic for no reason, or I'd be snappy with the ones I loved and not really know it was happening until it was done, or I'd be holding myself back in ways I didn't even know I was doing it. So the idea of this, going through this process, is to give us choices. Once we become consciously aware, we get to make more choices about how we get to live our life, how we get to respond in the moment, how we get to feel in moment by moment. Doesn't always mean that we make the right choice. Doesn't always mean that we have total control, but we at least get choice. And again, we'll elaborate on that as we go. So the first one is attention. And I know I've just partially covered this. It's paying attention to what occurs in this moment. That can be internally, thoughts, feelings, emotions, physical sensations. And externally, which is more what you can hear, what you can see, what you can smell, what you can taste. I'm assuming you'd be eating in that moment, or I don't know. So yeah, awareness of thoughts, physical sensations, emotions and feelings. And also external as well. Then we have open awareness. This is awareness of judgment. Where am I judging someone? Judging something? Judging myself? Judging this as good or bad? Judging myself because I'd feel tired, or judging myself because I can't be bothered today, or judging myself because, I don't know, it could be physical things, my hair doesn't quite look right, or judging other people. So that awareness of judgment. Let's not judge the judgment, by the way. Let's not judge ourselves for judging ourselves. But this is about the awareness of, I'm judging myself. I'm judging this as good or bad. Awareness of labeling, same thing, good or bad. Is this good? Is this bad? Was that person right? Was that person wrong? Am I right? Am I wrong? It's just the awareness of that. I'm not going to go into just yet what we do with that, but it's letting go of those labels and judgments. That's what we'll be doing as well. Because our minds mine is mostly full of shit. As you'll probably know if you've watched any of my stuff. It would always be judging things as good, bad, right, wrong, this and that. You know, I couldn't allow myself to relax because that meant I should be working, or I should be this, or I should be that, or just such high expectations of myself. Always constantly jabbering away and judging and comparing myself. Comparison is another one. Comparing they've got more followers, or they got more money, or they got a nicer car, or they're taller or smaller or shorter or fatter, or whatever it is that I am judging in that moment. So it's being aware of those. Next thing is acceptance. Accept current experience as it is. It's not attempting to change it. And it's not struggling or fighting with it. This is such a huge part. And a lot of people trip over here. So if you do, cool. Me too. Right? We're not trying to transcend what it means to be human here. We're looking to understand our experience of being human, and as you do that, a lot of this stuff is going to make sense on its own. You don't need to force this. You don't need to hopefully, if this lands for you as we go, and we will explore this further, it will make more and more sense as we go and become more obvious. So acceptance. For some reason we have this thought process, I don't know where we get this from, and I say we, I'm assuming you, where we think that if we don't like something, we need to fight against it, we need to judge it, we need to struggle against it, and therefore that means we can change it. But the famous question that I'd ask someone in that scenario is, how is that working for you? When you look at the things in your life that you aren't happy with, are you fighting against them? Are you coming at them from non-acceptance? Are you judging them? Are you doing everything you can to change it, yet somehow it isn't changing, or somehow it's getting worse, or somehow you just feel more and more pissed off at yourself, or more and more angry, or so there's a clue, right? And again, we'll go into this further. Something come up for me then, and I can't remember what it was now. Yeah, I can't remember. But again, we're going to cover this, so. The next part is no identification. So you are not the emotional thought. A lot of people identify with the emotion or the thought. I've just remembered what I was going to say on the last part, actually. It was about essentially the non-acceptance. My book is called, it's being edited at the moment, so maybe it's out now, maybe it isn't, depending on when you're watching this. If you're watching this basically around the time I actually first released it, isn't out yet, it's being edited. But if you watch this in the future, maybe it is. Maybe I'll put a link below if it is. It's called Winning the War Within. And it's about how I was at war with myself for a long time. And moving on to this part of the conversation, I was identifying with the emotion or the thought. I hear people all the time, my anxiety. They've identified with it. They've taken ownership of it. My anxiety. The clue is in the words. Jenna used to have anxiety, my wife. She used to be on medication, etc. And there was so many fascinating experiences getting to know her over the last 12 years or so. She doesn't, I'm going to say she doesn't suffer with it anymore. All humans have anxiety or the emotion of anxiety. She'd say, I'm anxious. And then if she'd ask me, are you anxious? I'd say, no, I'm not anxious. I remember this exact conversation. I was like, I do have this kind of feeling in my stomach though, this kind of like this knot in my stomach and almost this nervous kind of jittery energy, like, I don't know whether it's excitement or whether I'm nervous. And she'd say, yeah, that's anxiety. And I'd say, no, it's just a feeling in my stomach. It's a bit like a knot and just this kind of, this breathlessness, this kind of... So I just wasn't identifying with the emotion. I don't know how that happened. It might have been accidental, or I don't remember being taught that. She identified with it, classified it as she is anxiety. That was her. That was part of her identity. Whereas for me, it was an emotion that I felt. Sure, there were many other emotions and thoughts I identified with, but for some reason, that wasn't one of them. So I experienced feelings that you could classify as anxiety. However, I did identify with other emotions, So for example, here's an example here is I experience sadness versus I am sad. Can you see the difference? Very subtle, but quite profound the more we get into this. So I used to be angry. Anger was a primary... it still can be sometimes. It shows up from time to time. Again, I'll talk to you about that. You become aware of it, etc. But I was angry. I was this angry gorilla. Rather than experiencing anger. Rather than I am experiencing anger or I'm having thoughts that are causing anger. I'm having angry thoughts. There's a difference between experiencing them and noticing them compared to identifying with them. Personalizing them. Not everything you think is true. I mean, if I just took one sentence and if I had to choose just one sentence to try and change people's lives in the world, this would be it. Not everything you think is true. Another quote that I heard recently is, all thought is a lie, but some of it's useful to believe. A lot of people are walking around thinking that their thoughts are true. They are wrong because of this, and they think that's true. They 100% categorically think that they are correct. That's quite a dangerous place for us to live. Dangerous for our own internal happiness, joy, etc. Not everything you think is true. In fact, most of it is bullshit. But it's good to know. Because if my brain says, for example, you'd be happier if you had this. Well, if I know that that's not necessarily true, I'm free to observe. I can see, okay, is that true? Is that not true? I don't need to find the answer, but it's just nice to know, to not believe it with absolute certainty. The thought used to tell me that you're not good enough to do this, or you would be happier if your car was faster, and I would believe that and then use that as a stick to beat myself with. Final thing is states, emotions / thoughts. That's what states are, kind of. They come and go. Sounds silly, but I used to wake up and be like, I feel like shit. This is going to be a shit day now. I feel like crap today. It's like, no. You feel like crap in this moment. In this moment of now, you feel like crap. That might change in 5 minutes, 2 seconds, 10 minutes. Or it might not. Generally, they come and go. When I got caught in the thought storm, and I see this a lot with people, they buy into it. They identify with those emotions and thoughts in that moment. And from that place, when they're feeling shit, like life is crap, for whatever reason, whether they're hungover, whether they're tired, whether many things you'll come to learn about yourself if you don't know already, they would try to figure things out from that place. They would try and work things out from that place. They would think that that was a good place to make decisions from. They'd come to me all heated up and stressed. I've had enough of it all. I want to quit everything. I want to move to a beach in Thailand and just piss everything off. And it's like, no. Firstly, that's not the state to make decisions from. But secondly, once that state's passed, let's talk about it then. Because often you'll find that changes. That's why I thought I was bipolar, because my states changed so much, and I believe I identified with all of the thoughts and emotions in that moment, not realizing it was momentary. I didn't realize it changed like the seasons. I didn't know that the darkness would go and the sun would come out, and I didn't need to worry about that. I didn't need to worry about the winter, because the summer and the spring, the autumn, they're cyclical, they're cycles, they come and go, they're transient. I don't need to hold on to the resentment or the judgment because something's happened just now. The emotions come and go, and knowing that is useful. Final thing is choice. And that's the choice to not let a state take over, or not letting a states take over, if you want to use a really terrible sentence that doesn't make sense. But not letting states take over. The room between impulse and action, this is huge. Because you might find that the behaviors that you don't like about yourself, etc., are normally impulsive. They happen before you realize you've snapped, you've eaten something, you've not done something, it's happened before you've even really become mindful. So this is what this is about, is creating that choice, that awareness to notice. I still notice it. I notice when I'm about to do something and then it doesn't happen. I notice that in that moment I was about to get angry, or I was about to X, Y, and Z, or I had this thought. It's the room between that impulse and that action, where the behavior, and this is where people sometimes say, what have you done to me, James? Because they would normally do something. They would normally drink. They would normally eat. They would normally get angry. They would normally, whatever that thing is. But in that moment, they noticed and then they didn't do it. And they're like, oh my God, wow. So rather than impulsively reacting on thoughts and feelings, it's creating that awareness between those impulses. Yeah, like I said, a final example is like shouting automatically compared to, it almost feels like there's this momentary awareness where you go to shout and then you don't. Now that might sound trivial, I don't know, to you. That's one example, and that might sound trivial, but that's life-changing. That changes relationships, that changes lives when you would normally shout and you don't. And then from that place you react calmly. Or for me now, I'll say I'm getting angry. So I feel like I can't see what's true in this conversation. Just give me 5 minutes. And I can come back and go, right, cool. Okay, I've chilled. Right, this is what I see. Or when I find myself I find overwhelming situations with loads of noise really difficult. The kids are doing this and that, and Max is talking to me, and Jenna's asking me about food. And I used to react and get caught in this kind of, now I can just say, right, hang on, can everyone just stop talking? It doesn't mean I don't feel the anger for a moment, but I see it. And I go, right, okay. So I can take some, and it moves on to this part. It's conscious versus automatic behavior. And automatic behavior for me is get angry, shout. It's there are many other automatic behaviors. A conscious behavior is where you get to then make a decision about how you want to handle that situation. So it sounds easy, maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm not really sure. In theory, it's easy, and in practice, it can often be easy. But it doesn't mean we'll get this right I cannot stress this enough. We will not get this right all of the time, except for if we do. I love that sentence, by the way. I love that. It's, I am happy all of the time except for when I'm not. I enjoy life except for when I don't. I am such a good dad except for when I'm not. And I'm such a good husband except for when I'm not. I'm good at presenting this stuff except for when I'm not. There will always be fluctuations in us as humans. We will never be perfect, and trying to be doesn't help. Sometimes we mess things up, right? Sometimes we don't get it right, and that's okay. Sometimes this is really easy and sometimes it isn't. And sometimes we go, stop doing the things I know that can help me. Again, it's a practice. That's why I see this as a mindfulness practice. We get better at the things we practice. You keep going to the gym, you get stronger. You keep painting, you get better at painting. You keep etc., right? If you've got more than one kid, you'll know that by the second one, you didn't worry half as much as the first one. First one was like you wrapped them up in cotton wool like they were made of glass. By the second one, you're just like, yeah, they'll be fine as they're falling out the tree. Yeah, they'll catch a branch on the way down. It's practice. So one of the things to look out for is mindlessness. I posted a status recently. I got to the gym, realised I had the car keys, and I didn't want to stop my workout, so I sent my keys home in an Uber. And I said on there, totally committed to the gains. Also, totally committed to doing mindless shit. And that was kind of my jokes, my stupid sense of humour. But that actually is a warning to me. It's a light on the dashboard. If I start doing mindless stuff, I don't know why I had the keys. Why did I take the keys? It happened automatically. That to me, don't beat myself up. It's not a drama. It's not a problem. It can be if I want it to be, but it wasn't. And I have that choice, going back to the last slides. But that just says that's mindless. That's just a little nudge to say, get back into the moment, get back into the present. It's a mindless task. It's a mindless, not task, a mindless, I don't know. Why can't I find the words? This is mindless right now. I've done something mindlessly. Let's move on, right? Rushing for activities without being attentive to them. Breaking or spilling things because of carelessness, inattention, or thinking of something else. Failing to notice subtle feelings of physical tension and discomfort. Finding ourselves preoccupied with the future or the past. Snacking without being aware of eating. It's funny, all of these things, right? When I'd eat and go, oh, I don't remember eating. And Jenna would find that really funny, that bothers me. And it did bother me because I love eating. And I've eaten this nice food and I don't remember eating it. Not only does that bother me, because it means I now haven't got to enjoy it, it also bothered me because that showed me I wasn't present. I've lost myself somewhere. So you might recognize some of these. Breaking things. I become an idiot when I'm mindless, when I'm caught in my thinking. I become an idiot. I forget things. I lose things. And you will come to learn that we do have certain strengths and weaknesses. So I am quite forgetful anyway. If you ask me to get some flour from the shop, you won't get any flour from the shop, except for when you do, but the chances are you won't. And I know that about myself, so I've got the choice to try and consciously do something to remember, or I can just be okay with that. But there are certain behaviours I've seen in myself and others. They tend to be different, but similar to these when we're mindless. So practicing mindfulness, as we've said, is attention, open awareness, acceptance, non-identification or no identification, and choice. Do you see how easily my brain gets disrupted when something comes up that I think should look slightly different? It's like there's almost a jitter in my brain. It's like, well, so what's happened? So all of these things are prevented by our automatic patterns, which I've gone into. So automatic patterns of losing our attention, focusing on other things, our attention being on negative or bad or why life's so shit, or not being aware of it because we've slipped into that kind of zombie-like state, where we're kind of living this Groundhog Day or sleepwalking through life, as people have told me. We're not accepting, we're fighting against things, we're angry at ourselves, we're angry at these things, we wish they were different, we wish they were different, we wish our mum was different, our dad was different, our kids were different, we're identifying with thoughts, we are acting impulsively. They're all automatic patterns. So that's generally what tends to get in the way of them, which again, we're going to explore this. We've got some time together. So because of those automatic behaviors, extensive practice, I don't know if I like the word extensive practice. Depends on what way we look at that, because extensive practice to me feels like, loads more work, more to think about, more to do, more things to add to the to-do list. I've already got a massive to-do list, and now I've got to add practice mindfulness. It doesn't need to be like that. But staying in this conversation, listening in to these videos or watching them, being on the calls, if they're part of this program. They are currently, they may not be, depending if you join later. But rewatching these videos, even just placing your attention, to use the first point, on mindfulness. For me, I listen to audiobooks. Even after all these years, I listen to audiobooks every day. I read every day. I talk about this stuff every day because that's my job. That means my attention is always in this place. You can do other things as well. But there's a few things I'm going to get you to do, like the body scan, breathing meditation, small daily practices, and just applying the knowledge day by day. Again, you may hate the meditation, and the next person may love it. You may hate the daily practices, and the next person says, oh my God, they've changed my life, etc. That's what this is. It's an exploration. You will find that insights will happen anyway. the understanding, the awareness can change things and you don't even know how or why. But there are also things we can do as well. Like, for example, some of this stuff, applying the knowledge, the daily practices. I'll also give you further readings and stuff if you want, books that I listen to that cement this. But ideally, this would be fun and enjoyable. In which case, for me, I don't listen to audio because I need to be better, or my life's so shit, or I'm so shit. I enjoy it. And the more I move in this direction, the better my life tends to get. So I just enjoy that. It's fun. I imagine that might be similar for you. It depends on your part of the journey. The second part of this is the now. And I'm going to try and speed this up a bit because I want to keep these all under an hour, ideally. So I'm going to take you through a quick exercise. Nothing crazy. So I want you to just remember a beautiful moment from the past. Something, just a really happy moment. Try and think of what happened or how you felt. Try and picture that in as much detail, maybe what you can see, what you can hear, the emotions you felt. Now consider the moment you just thought of. Can you remember where your attention was in that moment? Were you thinking a lot? Were you living in the moment? Were there no other problems present in your life at that time? And the reason I ask that is because when we think back to those memories, it's usually because we were in the present moment. We were in the now. We weren't thinking a lot other than what we were doing. And there would have been other problems in our life, although we probably can't remember them now. Or looking back, they don't seem that big. But it wasn't because no problems existed. Some people make the mistake of thinking that if they had no problems, then their life would be happy. And some people have come to me trying to, if they could only get rid of all of their problems, then they would be happy. But what happens is once they get rid of all of those problems, other problems emerge, other problems appear because life is inherently problematic. If you're looking to get rid of all of your problems and get rid of all of your stresses, I can already tell you, you're probably wasting your time. I've tried it and I've seen many people try it. Again, that problems comes back to the element of acceptance and the judgment side of things. But when we look at happy memories, you'll normally find that it's because we were in the present moment. When you look at sporting examples, or when you're in flow, or when you're at your best, or it's usually because we're so in the moment that time disappears, our thoughts disappear, and we're just alive in that moment. So the present moment plays a fundamental role in mindfulness. We're often not in the now, as you'll probably know anyway. So where are we then? I know we've covered this a bit, but where are we? Normally in the past, we're thinking about yesterday, we're thinking about what we should have said, what we shouldn't have said. We're thinking about our past, how hard done by we was, or how our parents weren't good enough, or how we were mistreated, abused, neglected. We can go in any direction, really. How we were so stupid because we should have done this or should have done that. If only we knew this, or if only we were born into a different family, or born rich, or if only we knew back then what we knew now. You get the point, right? We're in the past. Or in the future. Things about what we have to do, all the what ifs, what if that, what if this. The amount of people I speak to that are trying to predict what's going to happen a year from now, 6 months from now. Right, okay, I've got enough money for 3 months, but what about month 4? And what about next year? And what about the economy? And what about the stock markets? And what about money? And what about my job? Or what about my business? Or what about my wife? Or what about so many future thoughts and what ifs? And going into the future, making up a negative story, but then living in the moment as if that's true, rather than being in the present moment. So most people are living where the past is taking up a lot, and the future is taking up a lot of their thought processes. And the now is a very small sliver. I mean, I could actually move these boxes around in all honesty. A lot of the people I tend to deal with, the future would be massive, the now would be tiny, and the past would be relatively small. Although I have spoken to a lot of people where the past is huge, the future is huge, and the now is even smaller than that. So what are we trying to do here? It's this. We can still think about the past. There's a lot of lessons there sometimes, and sometimes it's quite fun to explore, and there can be gold, and we can go into the past and think about forgiveness, and there can be a lot of transformational stuff there. Again, I don't tend to touch that stuff. I'm not necessarily I'm not a counselor or a therapist in that sense. So if it comes up, it comes up. I don't explore it. I don't do things like inner child work, or I've never done that. I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming that fits. So apologies if that isn't where that fits. But timeline therapy, stuff like that. I've never even done that, but that sounds like that would fit. And I've lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so the past can still be useful. And the future can sometimes, you can still negatively predict if you want, but just become aware of it. Okay, I'm negatively predicting again. Is there any usefulness here? We can still ponder the future. We can still dream. We can still go, right, next week's going to be busy. So if I do this and this and this. And also just being aware that our thoughts aren't true. So next week being busy, unless it's not, but it seems like it might, right? So based on this moment, it feels like that could be true. But I do know that I definitely have to pick Max up here, or Rosie up here, or Liam up here, or they're my kids, by the way. So we can still use our thought processes to go into the future, but that's a very different experience, but mainly being in the now, hence why this now box is bigger. So thoughts are something I talk a lot about. If you've watched my stuff, listened to my podcast, watched my videos, you know that thoughts are a place I like to play a lot, because they are a powerful tool, or can be. But they're difficult to turn off when not needed anymore. You might notice that. You can't switch off. You're struggling to be present because your brain keeps wandering off. If you come straight home from work, or you've had a busy day, sometimes it's like that momentum carries over, and you come home and it's like, you can't stop thinking about that email, etc. They disconnect us from the present moment. If we're in our thinking, we're usually not in the present. In fact, we're never. If we're in our thinking, we're just not in the present moment. And they can be problematic when believed to be true, as we've covered. So thoughts are not facts. Massive one to write down, maybe. So observe versus being caught in the train of thought. Thoughts are like a thought train. If you get on that thought to why is my life crap, or how much I've got to do, or whatever that thought train is, it just seems to go deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. It's like it stops off at more and more stations. The longer you stay on the train, the longer that thought train goes in that direction. So if you're on the thought train to hell, in a miserable experience, if I wake up feeling miserable and think about why my life's crap, that thought train just keeps going further and further into hell until eventually I just get off it, or notice, okay, I'm on the train of thought. The same can be true in the other direction. But there's a difference between observing the thoughts compared to actually accidentally getting caught on them. In this moment, there is seldom a problem. Right now, in this moment, what problems are there? I think Eckhart Tolle, I think it's him that says, what in this moment is lacking? You may want to write that down. It's not on the slides. I love that. What in this moment is lacking? You'll normally find that there are no problems in this moment. Problems exist in our head. I'm thinking about the problem that may or may not happen tomorrow, or the problem that happened yesterday that I'm now annoyed at myself about. In this moment, there's very rarely a problem. And if there is a problem, we normally deal with it. Normally when there is a problem, we get very quiet and we just get it done. It's like if we spill something right now, or if you're ever driving and nearly have an accident, in that moment, everything becomes very silent. There is not much thinking happening as we deal with the problem in the way that it needs dealing with. We get it done. Our thinking mind creates more problems, exaggerates problems. So the final point is attention. So attention focuses our awareness on a specific experience. So whether that's a book, TV, conversation, physical pain, thoughts. So the two forces, the one which demands attention, internal/external. So emotion, thoughts, demand attention generally. And then external, sound, TV commercials, or adverts, whatever you want to call them, right? Then there's the one who regulates attention. And that's what mindfulness is. It's learning to cultivate that attention. It's learning to use our attention consciously, because everything's trying to grab our attention. Sound is a big one for me. Adverts, social media should be on here really. The news, everything's trying to grab our attention and then grab our emotion and thoughts, and you can feel like you're being hijacked all of the time. So mindfulness is about becoming better at regulating our attention and directing it. So we're just going to do another exercise, which is try and stop your thoughts for 2 minutes, right? So I'm not going to sit here for 2 minutes. What I want you to do, listen to the instructions first, then pause this video. So you're going to stop this. You're going to put a timer on for 2 minutes and sit and think absolutely nothing for 2 minutes. Stop your thoughts. Stop anything. Don't do anything for 2 minutes, okay? Once you've done that, then unpause this video. So pause it now. Time 2 minutes. Do nothing at all. Don't think. After 2 minutes, come back. Okay, so hopefully you're back. Hopefully you actually did that. If you didn't, then I would invite you to question, why are you here? Are you exploring or are you gathering information like I spoke about in the introduction? If you did it, awesome. Great job, means you're actually exploring. You're here, you're looking for insight, you're open to playing this game. If you just decided you didn't want to do it, or you've already judged this as a crap exercise, there's probably a bit of a clue for you. So if you did do it, what did you experience? See, you may have noticed when I've done this before is thoughts demand a lot of our attention. And it's difficult, I would say impossible, to stop thoughts by trying not to think them. Our thoughts are all over the place. They go up and down, they go in and out, they tell us this is stupid. Oh, don't do 2 minutes, just do one. I get the idea. I know what James is talking about. I don't need to do this. What's that noise out there? I was bleeping. Oh, it's a bin lorry. Is it a bin lorry? What time is it? What day is it? Did I put the bins out? That's what our thoughts are doing all of the time. We have over 50,000 thoughts a day. And whilst thoughts can be handy, if they're creative, new ideas, making plans, they can also be problematic. Worry, rumination. Rumination, what that means is going round and round and round in your head over the same stuff. Negative stories about the self. That could say negative stories about the past, about the future, about people. And there are ways of dealing with thoughts, ways in which we generally tend to deal with thoughts, which is suppression. Some people do that. They crush it all inside. They don't talk about it. Suppression can often lead to depression. Suppression can often lead to suicide and many other things. Distraction. That's where eating, porn, sex, drugs, making loads of money, buying new cars, making ourselves feel better with a new dress, a new watch, a new car, a new whatever. And we can also challenge those thoughts. And then we can have this big battle within ourselves. I've tried all of these, by the way. Now, the problem with suppression is it tends to lead to rebound. So a lot of people, this might be anger or frustration or emotional kind of outbursts or whatever that is, where, it's like the emotion rebounds back bigger. And the problem with, let's say, challenging thoughts is it's temporary. No matter how many limiting beliefs you try and overcome, no matter how many counter arguments you make in your head, yeah, but I should be happy because of this, and think of the kids in Africa, and yeah, but don't forget this, and we can have these, we can challenge ourselves and argue in our head, but it's always temporary. And the problem is we're in our head thinking, so we're thinking about our thinking. And that's where the struggle comes from. So what do we do instead? Mindfully dealing with thoughts. So we get to observe them, we get to take them less serious, and we get to let them pass. Which means there's no struggle. So what does that mean? It means seeing our thoughts like we're watching a film. If you ever watched a film and you find yourself really tensed up, and you're like, I'm doing it now, my shoulders are up around my ears, and then you notice it and you go, relax, it's just a film. And your heart's racing and you just relax, but then you keep getting sucked into it. Well, that's what happens with our thinking. We get caught in our thoughts, we buy into our thinking, and we believe it's real. A lot of people are living their life like their thoughts are real, like their emotions and thoughts are absolute truth. They take them serious, and then they think they're a problem, and then they're fighting themselves because I don't want to feel this way, and I don't want to feel this way, and why do I feel this way? And then they're challenging them. A lot of the self-help industry is built on this, challenging all these thoughts, overcoming these thoughts, removing limiting beliefs. Some people can use mindfulness as a weapon against themselves. No. If you notice the nature of your thinking, if you notice that your thinking isn't real, if you can create distance through that awareness, that observation, you don't need to do anything with them. Like the clouds in the sky, they pass. They will pass. A bit like when the river is really running really fast and there's sticks and stones and it's all muddy, and we think we need to get in and stir it up to try and clear it away, and it's like, the water will run clear again. Just let it settle. Leave it alone. Notice, my thoughts are very muddy. I can't see any clarity. I can't see what's true here. I feel myself feeling emotional. I feel myself feeling angry. So let's let this settle down. Observe, notice, take it less serious, let it pass. So mindfully dealing with thoughts. Thinking is just attention for thoughts. It just means our attention is on our thinking. The flashlight of consciousness is being shone onto our thinking. You can see when someone's not present and they're in their thinking because they look distant. They're not really looking at anything. You can just tell they're not there. Like you'll speak to your wife and you see that, or your husband or whoever, and you can see they're not really there. You may experience it for yourself. Someone's talking to you and you're going, yeah, but you're not there because your attention is on your thinking rather than the present moment. So mindfully dealing with thoughts. So you can, again, you can use this. Remember, this is a tool. This is to point in the direction of. Try not to weaponize this or turn it into, I don't know how to explain this, but play with this. You can't get this wrong. So focus your attention to one point. A point is basically like an anchor, and you can return to this anchor. So examples of anchors are our breath. So breathing. A lot of people like breath work. A lot of meditation focuses on breath work. I actually teach 4-second box breathing, which I will either do that live or do a video of that at some point. So our breath. Even if we do that now, if you bring your attention onto your breath, feel as it comes in through your nose, deep into your stomach. Feel your stomach expand. And then out through your mouth. Do that with me, just even 2 or 3 of these. Ready? In through your nose, deep into your stomach. Then out through your mouth. Let's just do one more. So deep into your stomach, through your nose. Then out through your mouth. If we're focused on breathing, we can't be focused on anything else. So that's a good anchor. Breathing is a good one for me. I find that really useful. Our body, so we can bring our energy, our attention onto our body. How does it feel? The physical sensations, any warmth. One thing, again, using Eckhart Tolle as an example, there are many names I'll mention throughout this. He's someone that's had quite a big impact on my life, as well as numerous others. He said, if you close your eyes, is your hand still there? Without moving it, don't move it or anything. If you don't move your hand, is your hand still there or is it gone? If it is still there, how do you know? I really like that, because how I know is I can feel it. There's an energy to it. There's a warmth to it. As I place my attention onto it, there's almost a tingling sensation, a warmth, a rush of energy. Again, guess what we're doing right now? We're back in the present moment. So that's what these anchors can be used for. An object, a sound, a smell. You can use any, but I prefer breath and body. I really like. So mindfulness is taking our attention off of our thinking and into a deeper place. So it's bringing our attention onto the now using an anchor. You've heard this probably called many things. I sometimes call this grounding. Some people call it being centered. All sorts of things, really. It's bringing us back into the space beneath thinking. The place of no thought, the formless, that deeper energy, that consciousness. It's bringing us back into that. We do our best work from that place. We come up with our best answers from that place. We feel most alive. We enjoy life more. We're more creative. We problem solve. Life is more expansive when we get beneath our thinking. And I will talk about that more as we go. So, and then when we're in that place, when we're in that grounded place, when we are more centered in the moment, grounded in the moment, we can observe. It's detachment from the thoughts, which means we get to observe them. When we are focusing on the now, when we're consciously aware of this moment, we get to, some people call this the witness observer as well. There are so many names. Again, as I said earlier on, all roads lead to Rome. I don't know if that phrase works, but it sounds like it should. All things are pointing in the same direction. They're like the mountains, they're all pointing to the sky. Doesn't matter what terminology that lands with you. The essence is the same. The teaching is the same. The point is the same. It's being grounded and centered in the present moment, which allows us to observe our thinking, our emotions, allows us to, because you are not your thoughts. You are not your intellectual mind. You are not your egoic mind. You are not your thought-created identity or personality. We're getting even deeper now. We'll save this one for another time. But you are it's like another example I use is the waves in the sea. Sometimes they're calm. Sometimes they're huge and stormy. But if you go down into the sea, there's a depth at which you can go where there is stillness. That's what we're looking for. You are the stillness. You are the quiet stillness beneath. So the waves happen and the seasons happen and the storms and the sun and whatever else happens. But you are the stillness beneath, which puts you in that seat of awareness, that observation. So this training. 8 sessions, 8 essential topics. We've got session 1, which is this, attention for the present moment. Session 2 is automatic patterns and reactivity. We'll expand that further. Judgment and how that plays a part in our lives, our happiness, our relationships. Conflict/acceptance. Goals/future, doing versus results. Compassion, ego identity, and then integration. Now, why this is different is because we look at why does mindfulness work? What's the truth behind this? Where is it pointing to? What is the fundamental principles of being human? We'll look at things like, I've wrote here, what happens when I meditate. But what this is pointed to is, for me, it's like, okay, meditation's cool, or breathing's cool, or journaling is cool, or going for nature walks is cool, or exercise is cool. But I always wondered why. What is that pointing to? What is behind the tool? What is behind the truth? Where is this pointing to? What are the fundamental principles of being human? The art of being human? What is always true for every human? That's what we explore. And then what is the evidence for the effectiveness of mindfulness? Really, honestly, the evidence I need is the results that you get. And that's what I'd like your evidence to be. Try it. Try it on. Be with it. Explore it. Practice it. See for yourself. That's the only thing that matters, you know? It doesn't matter if a bazillion people have got results if you don't. So try this on for yourself, like trying on a pair of clothes. Try it on. See how you feel. Explore it. And then obviously we will integrate this into daily life. We'll chuck some meditation in there for those of you that enjoy that. Acting with awareness and dealing with emotions will be the things we're going to practice from this session. There'll be other practices as we go, and I'll detail those below around this video somewhere. Thanks for your attention. Hopefully it was undivided and fully focused, because otherwise you won't get as much from this. And considering the fact this whole thing is about mindfulness, it would make a whole lot of sense to be mindful when listening or watching me, at least for the first time. After that, if you listen whilst driving, walking, whatever, totally cool. But at least to start off with, let's give this full mindful attention. Anyway, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you watching this. I've got so much respect and love for you if you dedicate this time to yourself. As someone that has spent so much time lovingly and joyfully exploring my experience of life, it wasn't that way at first. It was not so much love and joy. It was more other emotions. But as someone that has dedicated my life to this, and this is my passion and my life, I've just got so much kind of mutual love and respect for people that also look in this direction. It's not only can you change your own life, but you can change your own world. You can change the people around you. The people around you can be impacted by you in so many ways. It's insane. But anyway, I'm going to stop waffling. Speak to you soon.